Then they're going to go through, this has an attachment, feeling it, transport. So they're going to give you storage and transport. You have to move this machine from one place to the other once you've mowed with it, so they'll tell you the proper way to strap it down to a trailer so you don't just drive along and let it bounce off. Or hook it to sheet metal that when you hit a bump, pulls the sheet metal off. So they'll tell you where to strap it down to and how to transport it. The next thing that you're going to run into once you've done that is going to get into actually service and maintenance of this piece of equipment. This one here gets into fuels and lubricants. What are the safety features involved in fuels and lubricants? What type of gasoline and what kind of engine oil to actually use. Tells you in different temperatures. If you're operating this thing in the winter, it's going to take a different type of oil than in the summertime. And so different fuels and different oils. And it goes everything from the engine oil to transmission, hydraulic, whatever fluids, greases, lubricants are used in it. They're going to give you specifications on the brand, the quality, and that information on how to do that. Then they're going to get into troubleshooting. You went out there and you tried to mow. You drove it. You tried to turn the mower deck on. It wouldn't turn on or off. Then they're going to get into troubleshooting. And they try to go through the most common problems that people call into John Deere and say, hey, I got this mower and it'll start and it runs, but every time I engage the mower deck, it dies. You can go to here and it'll give you that scenario and it'll give you possible causes, things to check, and what the solution should be. So what the problem symptom is, the problem, and the solution. Problem is the engine will not start. The problem is your fuel shutoff valve is closed. So turn the fuel shutoff valve on. And so it can be something very simple. It can be something pretty complicated. But most of these are pretty generic. It won't start, or it died and it won't restart. Well, make sure it's not out of fuel. Make sure the air cleaner didn't fall off or the battery got disconnected. Or they usually go through some pretty generic standard procedures here. After troubleshooting comes service. If you're actually maintaining or working on this piece of equipment, some courses have you grease it, or check the oil, or check the air filter, or check the hydraulic fluid. This is the part of the book that would tell you where all the grease fittings are. If somebody doesn't tell you where all the lubrication points are and where to check those, what happens is some of those just get left out. Person walks around, they grease the grease zerks that are out in the open and obvious, and they let the rest of them go, and then they just don't get lubricated. And it'll go through all the service. It goes through air filter. This has a radiator on it, how to clean the screen on the radiator. And it does a procedure. It starts with stuff that you do a lot: a 25-hour service, a 50-hour service, a 100-hour service, a 250 or yearly service. So they start out with things you do a lot. You would check the oil on a regular basis, change the oil every 25 if it doesn't have a filter, 100 hours if it has an oil filter on it. So they'll tell you how often you need to check it and change it, and where to drain it, where to add it. And the nice thing with this book is it gives you pictures, so you can just mainly look at the pictures. One of your question was, if my battery is low in fluid, what do I add? Right here on this page it tells you to add water. And how full do I add it? To the bottom of the vent. And they show you a picture, and if you open the cap on a battery, there'll be a vent hanging down. And it's about halfway from the top to the top of the plates that are in there. So it's not all the way up, and it's not to the top of the plates. It's right at the bottom of the vent. And so when you look in there, that's where it's at. And so how would I find the answer to that question I asked you? It's in the operator's manual, in the service section. This goes through transmission. It gets into things that are yearly lubrication. And once a year you want to grease the spindles. From service, it's going to get